Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in. However you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages that we're up and at them on these days, including facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk, and hopefully the spam subsides down there. We will just nuke anything we have to over there, but if you want to join in and have a part of the conversation, you are much more than welcome to do so, because we got a whole lot to talk about today. Of course, it is Friday, and our longtime listeners will know that this day has particular implications for how we go about this show. Most specifically, we're doing the Free-for-All Friday thing, and as this is the first of the year, whole lot to talk about there, and the first time we are in this new format, 4 to 6 p.m. So, if you want to call in during the show, during the whole time, because that is what this is dedicated to. I hinted at it a little bit yesterday, particularly for those who are new to the program, but this is what we do on Fridays. Free for All Friday, we will take on any subject. Just make sure that, you're keeping it FCC compliant if you're calling in, but you can definitely add your comments, your 2 cents, taking them online and on air. So if you want to call in, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Just a whole lot to talk about today. One of the ones I want to get to a little bit right off the bat, because we also have Leroy Chuck joining us over on the Facebook page, primarily facebook.com/Talk El Paso. I will still pretty much always think of that one as the main one, so to speak, because it's the one that we originally started with, and it's also the one that we have the most activity on still for now, and it's where the Skeptic Squad lives, as we have Matt Olson also chiming in over there on the social pages. So you're welcome to do that, and we'll take those comments. A couple of things to set the table here for you today. Of course, elections are going to be occupying not even just like apartment, but like estate, free real estate in my head for, let's just call it the next year, because I was going to say till March, but as soon as March and that primary elections are over, we then switch straight into general election mode. So I held no illusions that I'll be thinking about anything else with any great frequency. Hopefully not. But there's more announcements that are still coming in even. Like this one actually kind of technically surprised me, that Governor Greg Abbott wasn't technically running yet, or hadn't announced his re-election. I mean, incumbents, I guess, have a little bit different filing deadlines, so to speak, that they get. But the fact that, his campaign is already running here, the fact that there's an announcement that needs to be made is just mildly surprising to me, I guess, is what it comes down to. But yeah, Governor Greg Abbott, if you want to go see the article for yourself over on our webpage, ktsmradio.com. Abbott expected to make an announcement this weekend in McAllen, and then saying that he will formally kick off the campaign, which again, mildly surprising to me, because it's already geared up. I think it'll probably come to the same kind of way of if the former president Donald Trump decides to finally announce that he's running or not. And Chuck, Leroy Chuck over on the Facebook page, saying pretty correctly, is a skeptically correct for the most part here. Skepticism is, and a healthy dose of it, is something that I find myself very interested in. Is just a thought process. How I go about thinking about things usually comes from a point of skepticism. So I'm on board with you there. But more specifically, some of his plans are apparently Hispanic voters are going to be well of a focus, I think, in this upcoming election. Not even just for our local area, though we clearly need a focus on it, given those. Just because I don't think I've even mentioned them this year before, but that 3.5% and 4.5% registered voter turnout for the last two elections, respectively. Yeah, that old little gem that I just need to get like tattooed on myself here at this point. Maybe with Sharpie, but just a little box. What were the last elections? And just write it in there, because it's tattooed on my soul anyway. The fact that we have that much of a failure of our local electorate. Anyway, point is that he is going to be focusing a bit more on that, and we actually got some further interesting conversations a little bit later this month that you might be looking towards as well, as there is just, I think it came out of 2020. It was kind of the sleeper story in Texas in 2020 that Texas didn't turn blue, as was being much vaunted, but I wasn't going to hold my breath till I turned blue anyway, because sure, it would have been interesting if it happened, but not exactly a guarantee by any means, even though there were a lot of high-powered people expecting that kind of a situation. But the sleeper that kind of went under notice, under that larger story, was about what happened in South Texas. Specifically, what happened with a lot of the local races in what is traditionally considered, for Texas anyway, the kind of blue wall that narrows around the area of the border, didn't exactly end up turning out even as previous expectations held it to be. So that, I think, has lit more than a little bit of a fire under statewide and probably national Republicans, to be perfectly honest, to look at focusing on that area where usually it had been there's a disconnect there. It's not even worth spending time. I mean, those conversations were already happening while the time that I was at CPAC. Frankly, I was talking with both, the interviews that we've replayed since, but there were both Hispanic, minority, Latino groups, all of these, talking about how to get more engaged with their voter bases. So I think that's probably going to continue. And again, more probably more focus on that. Here's Ed Clore telling me that since we're doing this whole free-for-all thing and Fridays call me the ref, I'm supposed to wear a black and white striped shirt and a whistle. Maybe I'll get a tie. Maybe I'll get a ref tie here for the future on these shows here. But again, that phone line open. Might be having a little trouble with one of the lines here. If you're stuck in purgatory there, my apologies. But we will take those calls, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. So the race technically shaping up, I guess, even though I don't think anyone was expecting Abbott not to run. I guess over the summer, there was that, or early, middle of last year, there was that implication, I guess would be the right way to put it, of maybe if there was not a run of the former president again in 2024, that Abbott would be a likely one, but they had their own moment, and I think that kind of fell by the wayside, their photo op and their talk about the wall and all that. Not that I'm saying Abbott wouldn't be positioned for such, but I don't think that is at all the trajectory being looked at. Though, of course, this would not be the first time that a governor of Texas has vacated the seat in order to move up to the presidency. Just saying. Anyway, due for that first break here of the hour right now. It is Friday, and we're talking about a whole lot of stuff affecting the borderland. Sure, that's our purpose, but well beyond as well. So if you are wanting to call in, comment, participate in the show, as we already have John Brazelton, Ed Clore, Leroy Chuck, Matt Olson, and more tuned in to chime in, you're welcome to do so on social and on air by calling in 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso traffic, a small plane in an emergency landing near Donovan Drive and Racetrack. No injuries. Both Donovan and Racetrack streets are closed for now. Got stop-and-go traffic on the westbound side of I-10, Wrestler to Thorne. And it's heavy stop-and-go traffic Zaragoza between North Loop and the 10 Gateway. Also, Gateway Boulevard northbound at Cassidy, a disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder there. Gary Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I bought football tickets for my husband's birthday, and now I'm in a football bubble. All I see online are articles and ads about football. I hate feeling manipulated. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
If you're tired of big cable bills and want to cut the cord, you can still get Newsmax TV for free. Millions of Americans like you are watching Newsmax. It's available on all major cable systems, or get it free on major streaming platforms. Watch Newsmax on smart TVs like Samsung, LG, Vizio, and more. Find Newsmax on your hub guide or use the TV app. Newsmax also streams free on Roku, Zumo, Pluto, Amazon Fire, TiVo, Apple TV, Chromecast, and more. More than 7 million people have downloaded the free Newsmax app on their smartphones. There's no paywall or subscription, so watch Newsmax anytime, anywhere. Forbes calls Newsmax a news powerhouse. And watch great shows with Mike Huckabee, Greg Kelly, Rob Schmidt, Diamond and Silk, Stinchfield, and a lot more. Find out why America is tuning in to Newsmax TV, the fastest growing cable news channel. It's a source you can trust. Newsmax is real news for real people.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes make a big difference for the environment. Did you know that keeping your tires even a single PSI lower than recommended means worse mileage and more trips to the pump? So do the environment and your wallet a favor and always check the tire pressure. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips on smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
If you're a single man under the age of 35, you'd probably like to know what the ladies are looking for on an online dating site. A guy who had a few drinks and later got pulled over for buzzed driving. See, that could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. And doesn't a guy who's back living with his parents but calls them my roommates just scream Mr. Right?
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. It is Friday. We have made it through this first week of the year. Congratulations, by the way. Hope your 2022 is turning out better than previous years, most recent previous years. Not that yours was necessarily bad, but in aggregate, we've had some time. So let's talk about all that and a whole lot more. It is Free for All Friday, so we are taking those calls and comments throughout the hour. So that number to call is 915. 2 hours. I'm still slipping up here because we're doing 4 to 6 p.m. now. So both hours, 4 to 6 p.m., comments and calls the whole time. Just if you're calling in, but the only policy we have is the FCC ones that I ain't paying that fine. So just keep it clean and we're good to go. We'll take on any subject. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Okay, I got to get a ref time, maybe a whistle here, maybe a whistle sound effect anyway. As we also had a Calvin Williams, Maria Kallman, John Brownson, Edgar Clore, Leroy Chuck, and Matt Olson tuning in and chiming in. An interesting point to be made here. John Brownson saying Hispanics are extremely upset about the wide open border turning red. I think I'm sure that's a contributing factor, to be perfectly honest, but to a larger extent, there's just been more activation going on. It's anecdotal at the best for me bringing this up because there's no real studies about it, but I think in the last election, we really saw the power of door-to-door because even though nationally, a lot of focus on the races and the people who were already activated are the ones who went out to vote, but in the local races, because of the whole idea of the blue wave in Texas that did materialize, didn't so much as a splash on the beach, because there was a whole lot of differences in how the campaigning was doing during the lead up to 2020 now, wasn't there, in the election. So I think that's a narrative going on. It's one I'm looking at anyway. But the border issues, I mean, you can't ignore that, absolutely. Maria Kallman saying that when it comes to our local and in our broadcast area politics here, that El Paso will still vote for Democrats. Calvin Williams making the point before I even could that maybe 3% of them, because that's really what it unfortunately comes down to here, is that no one's voting. Heck, in 2020, in one of the most contentious elections in my lifetime, if anyone listening, so we've got a more contentious election, I'd love to hear about it, but we had just over half of registered voters in this area actually bother to go out to the polls. Now, remember, if you dare, what it was like during that campaign and the lead up, what a fervor pitch it was, and the issues that a lot of people espouse concern about around here anyway, and then yet they can't be bothered to actually go out and vote. We have a whole lot of other issues we need to focus on here before we even get to what is the actual voter turnout going to be. And again, we got some interviews and some topics focused on that coming up here. Some more events coming in town because I think there are even more local people. We've had some local people espouse of wanting to get organized and involved, but then also other organizations coming in to say, okay, we see a ripeness, a ready to be activated kind of sense out here that I'm hoping, even though politics doesn't really care about your hopes and dreams, I will hope against hope that we see some more turnout, just flat out. Heck, just that's why I always espouse, go out and get your own people out there. And no, I'm not throwing any red cards just yet. It would make it very clear if we end up banning anyone. Spam bots finding us online lately, but we'll deal with that otherwise. All right, get into those phone lines that are open through the show, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Raul.
Hi there, Raul. What's on your mind?
Yeah, it is sad that voter turnout is so low. You know, sometimes I wonder if it's because people out there are cynical about politics. They're alienated from politics. They don't think it matters because they don't have the big bucks to get that politician's attention. You know, things like that. Only 21% of Republicans say that Joe Biden's victory was legitimate. So I have a question for all those Trumpers who believe that nonsense. If Democrats had the capability and the intent to steal a presidential election, why didn't they do it in 2016 when Trump lost the popular vote, even with his pal Putin's help? You know, it's like what President Biden said the other day, and I'm paraphrasing. Trump is just a lying loser who cares more about himself than the country. And President Biden and Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and Republican House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy have all said Trump is responsible for the attack on the Capitol.
Okay, we'll give everyone else a chance to comment this as we do the rest of the show here. But okay, let me posit a question to your question then about the 2020 election here. Now, I don't necessarily buy a whole lot of the rhetoric that comes along with it, but the more reasonable line of inquiry that comes out of it is, what about the state laws that changed in the lead up to the election? Something where there literally was not even a change done by legislatures in laws, but rather ordered by courts. In the lead up to an election, does courts changing how an election can be done, does that seem like it might be problematic to you in any way, shape, or form?
I really don't know, but I do know this. 60 courts heard cases of illegal votes and so forth, including 2 Supreme Courts, and they all were turned down for lack of evidence.
I mean, sure, what we're talking, this is not an apples to apples comparison we're making here. We're talking about the things that were done primarily in state Supreme Courts in the lead up to the election. This is one of the more kind of legitimate gripes and some of the laws that have been changing in the aftermath of the election to make sure that that basically can't happen again. I guess you just don't have any spare thoughts on that part?
Well, his Attorney General, Bill Barr, and his cybersecurity expert, I don't remember who the gentleman's name was, said that this is one of the most secure elections ever. And again, if the Democrats had the ability to steal elections, why didn't they do it in 2016?
I mean, that's kind of a whataboutism question there for me, because literally we're talking about not necessarily the security of the election itself, but the way it was even administered. So I think we're talking cross purposes here. So I guess thanks for the point in the call overall there. Again, taking those calls throughout the hour, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Got some more calls in the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Joe on the west side.
Hey there, Joe. What's on your mind?
Basically, Andrew, you seem like a nice guy, and I don't want to judge you, but I know the mainstream media, which you're a part of, is very corrupt. And, they're all reporting the insurrection, all this nonsense about it being like Pearl Harbor, 911, which kind of puts fear in me because, at the Pearl Harbor 911, we went to war. And, Biden administration is calling Republican voters domestic terrorists already. Well, the whole point of the matter is not one of you guys, one of the stations here in El Paso, news or radio, covered the Matt Gaetz press conference. Are you familiar with the Matt Gaetz press conference?
The one that happened as the Republican response to it yesterday?
Yes, sir. There was Matt Gaetz and Marjorie, the freshman Tennessee Congress lady.
I'm going to correct you on that. There was literally in the news updates we had in this program yesterday, and I know for a fact that some of our other hosts here on the station were definitely talking about it yesterday, so not quite sure where you're coming from on it not being covered.
My point is, I was arguing on Facebook with the local voters here, one of the local TV stations Facebook page.
Sure.
And, they're calling it fake videos and stuff. The point is this, they just did a poll today. I listened to Dan Bongino's podcast, and the Rasmussen, which is a neutral poll, 50% of the people in the country don't trust the FBI and Justice Department, and 25% do. The other 25% is undecided. And let me give you some basic facts here. Okay, first of all, the FBI was complacent in the fake PP Russian hoax. That's number one. Number two is they're part of the Mueller investigation, knowing it was just all based on total lies. Number three is they did nothing to the Antifa and Black Lives Matter rioters, which killed many, many police officers, many people, billions of dollars in damage, and more importantly, it was a person-on-person crime. They damaged mostly poor, Black, and minority neighborhoods. Nothing was done with that. They hid the Hunter Biden laptop information. I mean, you think the Justice Department is fair, or you think it's like Joe Biden's wing of the KGB? Because at this point, we're becoming a kangaroo republic, and people don't trust law and order in the Justice Department.
I mean, the Justice Department is, by intent and by design, supposed to be the highest, basically, cops in the land and doing enforcing of justice for its own sake, not as serving any individual purpose or administration, more particularly, or anyone's individual whims. Better way to put it here. So we've seen a lot of impacts on the reliability and the belief in institutions. I mean, even outside of the political implications coming up from here, over this past couple of years, we've seen approval ratings. I mean, Congress has already been cratered since long before this, let's be honest, but of other agencies just not being well received here. So I don't see this as something new, but I do see it as getting a little bit more speed, potentially, because if you can't trust the institutions that run these things, there is a trust crisis, any way that you slice it, because either side of the aisle, frankly, is out there saying, yeah, I don't really trust what's going on or in this way, but there's lack of agreement then what a source is, or B, what to do about it. So I think you bring up an interesting point there, but okay, put that out there to everyone else. What do you think about it? So thank you for that point and that call there. Do appreciate it here. We are doing that whole Friday thing, so if you want to call in during the show, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I just glanced for a second here away from the comments and seeing everything going on. Edgar Ortiz, happy to be tuned in just as time we were talking about certain issues. We'll take a lot more of these comments and calls throughout the hour. We'll go ahead and take that break right now. Come back to get more of those calls on the line here. Again, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Talk a little bit about this thing for the traffic update there. We actually got some pictures to show you, as well as, well, there's a whole lot more, including some of the other election things going on a little bit more closer to our area. Stay tuned for that more after this break.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Jessica Gonzalez with your CBS 4 News Update. UTEP is allowing departments to make their own decisions on whether to send employees back to remote work. The university is still planning to start the spring semester on time and in person. Students and staff are encouraged to get tested before returning to campus from winter break. New Mexico State University employees are now required to get a booster shot unless employees have received an improved exemption. They have until February 9th to get their third dose. If not eligible by that date, employees must provide weekly test results to the university's VaxTrax portal and get the booster when they become eligible. In regards to students, they have the option to either get vaccinated or test weekly. A community in Socorro will finally see relief after dealing with major flooding for years. A nearly $35 million project approved Thursday by the Texas Water Development Board will help reduce flooding risk for homes and businesses in the Lower Valley. The money will be used to build a 300-foot-long floodwater detention basin and a 40-foot-tall embankment at the lower end of the Sparks Arroyo. I'm Jessica Gonzalez with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 stop-and-go traffic eastbound between Artcraft and Thorne. It's stop-and-go on the westbound side of I-10. Starting at Wrestler up to Thorne, Zaragoza's got heavy traffic. North Loop up to the 10 Gateway. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Airway, right lane is blocked due to a stalled vehicle. And a small plane making that emergency landing earlier this afternoon is closed Donovan Drive and Racetrack. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. So we've got some pretty warm temperatures, at least again for your weekend, with temperatures hovering near 70 degrees on Saturday in some areas around the borderland. But a cool down will take place as we get into Sunday with a cold front coming in. Look for some winds this weekend as well. Nothing very strong, but they'll be noticeable. Kicking into next week, though, we've got our next weather maker bringing back colder air and rain chances.
This report is sponsored by Liberty Mutual Insurance, where you only pay for what you need.
Liberty. Nobody should have to pay for one-size-fits-all insurance coverage. Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty. One-on-one with Susan Eisen.
I was born in El Paso, and this is our city. Get to know us. We'll be your most trusted resource for buying jewelry and for all your jewelry and watch needs.
Best customers in the world. Visit SusanEisen.com. One-on-one with Susan Eisen.
The art metals classes I've taken at UTEP train me to be original and creative above all else, and that's what sets us apart.
When it comes to creative jewelry design, visit SusanEisen.com.
Attend the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, January 8th and 9th at the Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Ave in Las Cruces. See dealers selling the finest in modern guns, antique guns, custom knives, ammo, Old West collectibles, reloading supplies, and much more. Buy, sell, and trade at the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, January 8th and 9th, Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University in Las Cruces. Get $2 off. Go to azgunradio.com. Parking is free.
Talk El Paso, airing weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, focused on local businesses, local politics, local impacts of the day's news. Brought to you in part by Thrive 915 Food Fest. Join the conversation Monday through Friday at 4, and let's talk El Paso.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. It is Friday. We have made it through that first part of the year, so we are doing that whole free-for-all Friday thing. First time we're also, of course, doing it in this new format, 4 to 6 p.m. I'm excited to see how this goes. So if you're tuned in, locked in, chiming in, calling in, you are more than welcome to do so. We're getting a lot more time, and we're going to get to a lot here. I teased it right before the break, and I want to get to it here. Just if you were hearing those traffic updates about a road closed because of an emergency landing, well, I just happened to pull those pictures over here from our news partners, particularly over at KFOX 14. Up on screen there is the plane that landed, apparently emergency on Donovan a little bit earlier this afternoon, so that road's still closed for the most part. The amazing things that you can find on the internet these days, because looking up that tail number, you can actually figure out the flight plan that was taken by the plane. Looks like it came out of El Paso International, did some touch and goes, stop and goes out there at the Santa Teresa International Airport, then was skirting the border for a bit before ending up having to make that emergency landing. Fascinating, the things that you can find there. So yeah, avoid that area. No one was hurt, thankfully, and we don't usually comment on the traffic too much, except for the updates that we have. But this one just wild enough when I was able to pull those pictures and that data out there. So yeah, weird stuff going on out there. Keep your eyes on the road and the skies, apparently, is the way we got to be doing it right now. Just one particularly kind of hyper local thing here at the moment, but we are doing that. Rest of the talk, the comments, the calls, all of it. Bring up what you want to. We will take on any subject. Just remember to, particularly if you're calling in, keep in mind those FCC rules here. Love to talk about it, but if you're using the deadly words, we got to end it there. Is just how I have to do it. So if you want to call on 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments going on here. We do have Raul commenting over there, but also Adan Martinez, Calvin Williams, Matt Olson, James Ratcliffe, Maria Kallman, John Broutleton, Edgar Ortiz, Leroy Chuck a little bit earlier, Ed Clore, and more. So social pages are one of the better ways you can comment on here throughout the show. But let's go ahead and get to those phone lines right now. We do have right now Randall over in Kern Place there. Randall, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, well, thank you. But I'm still just so concerned that people are actually believing that the damage that has been done can even possibly even be reversed. But being $30 trillion in debt and saying that Biden's a success, and the only one who was trying to hold anything back was Trump and Pelosi and Schumer, Harry Reid, whatever. They're all pushing to keep spending when we didn't have any money to spend. And nothing's changed. It's just gotten worse. And now they're trying to say that, well, now the Bitcoin and all this stuff. Well, all that's supposed to do as far as the Bitcoin, it's supposed to replace the U.S. currency? That's nuts. There's no way.
Yeah.
If they try to replace the U.S. currency, then what the U.S. dollar means nothing. And if we all go to credits like they're trying to push, it just makes everything even worse here. And I make an observation back in the 1950s and 60s, when I was a kid, everybody used to have a private plane. There was a huge middle income class. Now there's no middle income class. So I disagree completely with Raul. I completely disagree with the voting, and that the voting laws have not been changed in Pennsylvania, Arizona, or Georgia, or any places we've been watching. In fact, things have gotten worse in those states. So I'm still wondering, how in the world can anybody get a fair election? And so why should anybody go and vote when the politicians will not make sure that we even have fair voting laws? So I'm just amazed at the absolute absurd behavior of people who continue to vote for the Nationalist Socialist Democratic Party, which in Germany meant Nazis. Thank you very much.
Sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call there. I bring up a lot of important things. Bitcoin, among other things, I don't think it'll ever replace the mainstream currency. We'll get into that here in just a second. Did pull up a figure here, but I have to say that if the concern about elections, what's going on with them, comes down to, so why should I bother to vote? I'm going to disagree with you every time on that, because we already have enough people not voting at all here that you're really going to say that locally this has been a part of it? We have almost no one voting. Like, seriously, if everyone that listened to the station actually did vote, probably would be seeing some better numbers out there. I know that not all of you, probably most of you, but not all of you voted in the last couple of elections when we had those just super, super dismal turnouts. But that's the real rub when it comes to me. When it comes down to, it's supposed to, so let's get involved, let's get activated, let's show them that we're paying attention. It comes down to, so why should I bother to do everything? That is just some backwards thinking to me. And I get your frustration. I understand it. And particularly making sure those laws are in place so that if the real issues that happens in the lead up to the election can't be repeated again, that's one important thing. But okay, let's look at the political involvement we see here, even beyond the election. Let's assume we actually had people going out and voting. Two of the most contentious seats, the ones that were most in the news locally anyway, over the last year, we have some of the state representatives as well as the county judge. And guess who's running for those seats? There literally is no opposition. Again, do have to mention for the county judge, there is an independent running, but I'm not knowing anything about that person or their politics. I am not going to be holding my breath about that, given just the recent history of it. It's until proven otherwise, I'm going to consider it not viable. Just personally here, nothing against that person. Again, just given overall factors. So the fact that we don't even have people willing to even say, I will run and put that point on it, we have a lot more basic issues to deal with here. Even then, I think locally, when it comes to the way laws were looked at and may have been adjusted by courts in the lead up to the election. You cannot tell me that we do not have those issues here, even if there may be other larger scope ones than locally here. We have a very, very basic one here, and I'm never going to stop harping on that. So anytime it comes around to, so why should I bother? Oh, you lose me immediately. To your point about the Bitcoin replacing the U.S. currency, one factor that does not get considered about cryptocurrency not much is the amount of energy it literally takes to transact this. I know they're popular, and I know a lot goes into it, but according to Fortune magazine, fortune.com, each Bitcoin transaction takes 1,173 kilowatt hours of electricity. That sounds insane because that's the power of a typical American household for 6 weeks. And no, that is not a typo. That is not an error because of the way, blockchain is an interesting technology. It going mainstream, not looking too terrifically likely in the meantime. Just my 2 cents. I've got some small holdings here. This is not a shill for investing here, but just know the factors, what's going on to it. So yeah, I'd be very dubious about that assumption. Anyway, getting more of the calls in the line here, a little bit of a soapbox moment because you triggered me. I'm sorry. All right, we do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. To respond to Raul, as I recall, the courts did not rule on any of those election fraud cases. They just didn't hear them. Number two, there were why did the Democrats not supposedly cheat in the 2016 election? Well, they were snubbed. They thought it was a open and shut case that Hillary Rodham Clinton was going to win. They thought Donald Trump was some fly-by-night candidate, and he had no chance. And also, I'm sure Frankie's going to choke on this, but hey, Mueller said that there was no collusion, and the only thing Mueller said was that he could not prove or disprove obstruction. Well, let me tell you, if a prosecutor has even the slightest scintilla of obstruction, he's going to go after you. So I really don't buy that. That's just a phrase to get out, to clear themselves. But anyway, another point I wanted to make, Andrew, and I'll turn the mic back to you. But just recently, President Biden shut down a power plant that was going to be powered by natural gas in the state of Connecticut. It's amazing how these people will shut down our livelihood, the pipelines and our ability to be energy independent, but yet they're begging the Russians and OPEC to produce more petroleum. But anyway, have a good evening and have a good weekend.
Oh, you too. Thank you very much for the points in the call there. I mean, you bring up a lot of interesting points. This is the day we bring up a lot of interesting points, so I'm going to say that a lot. To your last one about the Russians and the Saudis, I'm sure we're still going to be in the bed for the Saudis for the time being, for the foreseeable future, strategic allies, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to be surprised if that works up, even if the involvement with OPEC is complicated at best. There is an interesting move internationally, though, because the Russian supply of natural gas, they're the major suppliers, basically for Europe. So that's strategically important in a couple of ways. A, if that were just to be cut off because the Russians are ticked, and do not think that that's outside of the realm of possibility, it's a vulnerability for all of Europe. So that's actually been something that's been being focused on internationally, and there's probably going to be talk of some upcoming things involving the European Union and a whole lot more. France, among others, pushing for more nuclear power, for nuclear power to be considered green energy for the policies of the European Union. I mean, you might start glowing green, sure. There's more debate to be had about that, but that's a push I expect to be happening over the next half decade or more, is a focus away from the control of the supply that currently happens, particularly for the areas around the Caspian Sea and more of those oil fields and gas supply fields that Russia controls, and Europe trying to do something else, because that's a whole complicated issue, something that I pay attention to. That doesn't come up much on this show, but hey, it's Friday, so why not here? Let's squeeze in one more quick call before we end up in this break here. We do have Tony on the west side here with us right now. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon. How you doing?
Doing all right.
Well, first of all, the guy that was on yesterday about the wanting to make the city bigger and all that, let me tell you, bigger is not always better. Everybody wants to make El Paso like another city, and they want to make it bigger, okay? But let me remind you something. El Paso is very unique in that it has the Franklin Mountains cutting it in half. And every time you expand and you grow, you actually are causing the possibility of chaos and disaster. Imagine having your house cut in half, and the only way you can get from your bedrooms to your kitchen and so forth is with a 100-foot corridor. You know, that I-10 is traveling from West Coast to East Coast. And we keep growing. And you see what happens every afternoon. Almost every afternoon, there's a slow up or accident. I'm sorry, am I still on?
Oh, yeah, you're with us.
Okay. So I want people to understand something. Bigger is not always better. You keep making this city bigger and bigger, and you're going to cause. You also have to pay the price, which is a possible catastrophe at I-10 in case of an emergency or emergency evacuation, what have you. That's number one. Number two, every time we try to sell people on quality of life, that is code for making the contractors richer. Everything they sell us, whether it be a swimming pool or an arena or a baseball field, whatever, it costs us 3 times what it's supposed to cost us. So it's a way to screw the people of El Paso. That's why our taxes never go down, because some people, not all of you, but some of you are so stupid that when you hear quality of life, you vote for it, and then you get sold something that is worth 1/3 of what you paid for it. And that's the problem, that there's people running this city that are making themselves rich because some of us are too stupid to see behind the curtain. This quality of life is a bunch of BS. Just do the calculations. This stadium ended up costing us 3 times more than it was supposed to cost. They're going to do the same thing with the arena. They keep sticking it to us because we're not together. We don't have leadership. We don't hold them accountable. And the people who get elected are people who already have some money. They go in there and get richer. And we don't get a platform because it takes time and money. We're busy putting food on the table for our families. We don't have time to defend ourselves against these corrupt people. I mean, it's just horrible. We really need to form a group and get together and hold them accountable. Last thing, this thing about I'm so sick of this patient that we have from the Northeast. My goodness, the reason the judges, there's plenty of evidence about the corruption and the cheating, by the way, in the last election. But the reason that many judges did not rule in favor and did not let the mayor from New York City, I'm sorry, and Sidney Powell and so forth, the reason they didn't go ahead and hear those cases. Have you ever heard of Antifa? They will burn this country down. Half of those judges were Democrat appointees, Obama appointees. The other half are scared because they know that if they have challenged and they put Trump in office, Antifa, who will murder you, by the way, and you Democrats, you belong to the most evil group in the world. You have Antifa who's doing your leadership, and they will burn. I have videos. You can look at videos on YouTube where they pour gasoline down the backs of policemen. They are dangerous people. They will kill you. When they find out that you don't agree with them and they're in a group, they will kill you. They are dangerous. The Democratic Party has become evil. I'm not saying all Democrats listening to me are evil, but you are being led by very evil people. Those politicians that are in Washington, D.C., the reason they hate Trump is he wants to change the idea of these career politicians that go there and make a living for the rest of their lives, 40, 50 years, sucking the blood out of the taxpayers. And that's why the whole system is against him. I'm not defending him as a person. I'm defending him as a principle. A non-politician that tried to go clean up Washington, and Washington chewed him up and spit him out. They're probably never going to have another chance to get somebody in there to try to clean those thieves and those serpents, those snipers. I'm so angry I can't even think of my words, but let me end with this. All of you knew that Washington was corrupt before Trump ran. And all of a sudden when Trump ran, he becomes the evil guy and everybody else is all right. That should show you that you are wrong. You're being misled. You're being brainwashed. Stop being so foolish. Please, people, stop being so foolish.
A lot you covered there, so thank you for the call there. I mean, the whole thing about, Washington being founded on a swamp and it never kind of changed proves true more than a whole lot. This is why I say that I never want incumbents to feel comfortable. Never want them to think that they can sit on their laurels and do nothing, then just focus on the next election because, well, that's how we end up in part of that situation you described there, people being in their career. The fact that there is a concept of career politician is a little messed up on its own. I'm not totally on board with term limits as a solution to that, though, because then, in my estimation, we're just handing power to very narrow special interests to then supply the information, essentially keep, growing the next crop, so to speak, of the legislators. But that's a whole another show. We are well overdue for this next break we got to take before we end up at the bottom of the top of the next hour here. So taking that right now. We are doing that free-for-all thing this Friday. So comments going on over on the socials. Whole lot more going on online and on air. So if you want to call in that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking El Paso traffic, got some road closures due to an emergency plane landing earlier this afternoon. Donovan Drive and Racetrack. Both roads are closed till further notice. I-10 eastbound at Artcraft, it's slow and go down to Thorne. I-10 westbound from Wrestler to Thorne, it's stop and go traffic. Loop 375 southbound, south of the 601 spur at Iron Medics, a disabled vehicle blocking the left shoulder. Stay right. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Dell Technologies' New Year event helps you save up to 45%.
Transform your workspace on high-performance computers featuring Windows 11 Pro with powerful hardware-based security. Call an advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. It sure feels good to step into a warm car after letting it heat up for a few minutes. However, this practice wastes gas, increases emissions, and pollutes the air. Limit idling your car to no more than 3 minutes to save money at the gas station and improve air quality. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Now may be the perfect time to buy a home financed by Loan Depot. Loan Depot has over 300 loan products to help you make home ownership a reality. Interest rates are near historic lows. Rates will not stay low forever. So call 866-888-LOAN so one of our thousands of loan officers can help you find the right loan. Call 866-888-LOAN or visit loandepot.com. Loan Depot. Rates are subject to change. Equal housing opportunity lender. NMLS number 174457. Licensed in all 50 states.
Mass Mutual knows retirement can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Who's the big boy?
You are.
Who's gonna take care of us when we retire?
It's gonna be you.
You're gonna make sure we don't end up in a retirement home.
Or if we do, it's a really nice one.
With tango lessons.
And bocce ball.
And a community pool. Oh.
Talk to us about retirement today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live
I
Mutual.
bought football tickets for my husband's birthday, and now I'm in a football bubble. All I see online are articles and ads about football. I hate feeling manipulated. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod. Noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Friday means we're doing open lines throughout the show. So if you want to call in, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Remember to put the 915 on there because that's the way it works around here locally these days. So 915-544-5876. Short-ish segment here, so I'm just going to make a couple of quick points before we end up hitting that top of the hour news break. But we'll be back next hour, of course, doing that whole 4 to 6 p.m. thing now. We'll take more calls, talking about more of the issues that affect us in the borderland and beyond. We'll take on any subject here today. But one of the questions that came up here, Calvin Williams is saying correctly that, yeah, Bitcoin going with crypto is not going green. Literally, there's a guy out there that kind of related to some of the off-gas and oil field and burning of stuff discussion we ended up having earlier this week randomly. There's actually a guy who built up a business basically saying, hey, oil fields, I will deal with if you're not actually harvesting the natural gas. The natural gas is something that's a byproduct that you're not wanting to deal with. I'll come in and deal it with you. And what he did is that he put in Bitcoin mining rigs running off of basically fuel cells off that waste natural gas out there. But that's the kind of thing it ends up taking to deal with that amount of power and energy. So no, dealing with Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, it doesn't get talked about much, but yeah, if it gets to actually like scale of like an entire country anywhere near replacing a standard currency, there's a whole lot more issues with that going on here. One other thing that I mentioned that I want to get to before we end the hour here is that there actually is going to be a visit from a gubernatorial candidate meet and greet here in town, though probably not the one that you would totally talk about here. Well, we talk about it plenty, but be surprised if anyone from here is just breaking down the door to head out there. Specifically, the O'Rourke for Governor campaign is going to be having a meet and greet. It looks like a couple of them in El Paso this coming Saturday. So tomorrow. So a lot of that heating up to be sure. Yeah. No, Kevin Love's letting us know he's currently in line to get a COVID test. Hopefully it works out for you and good luck being in the line there, not having gotten better since we last checked in on it for sure. So those are a couple of the topics I got in mind here today, but like I said, we're taking more of those comments and calls throughout the hour here, as we have a lot of people tuned in, locked in here. Kevin Williams, John Brazelton, Raul, Kevin Williams again, whole lot more going on here. James Ratcliffe, Matt Olson, and a whole lot more. There's more than we can get to even in a couple hours with all the issues going on here, but this is essentially our pressure relief valve for the week. So if you got an issue you want to talk about, we'll get to more of those calls right after this top of the hour news break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. I do appreciate everyone who does call in and participate in this, because y'all help make this. I can come up with so many topics in a day, but everything that y'all bring up always ends up making it a bit more interesting and relevant and responsive to what y'all want to see. Part of why we do this and the way we go about and think about it. So, going to go ahead and take that break. Hit the top of the hour, back after the news. So stay tuned. You are locked in here to Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM, doing 2 hours, 4 to 6 p.m. A lot more to talk about after this break. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
The intersection of Donovan and Racetrack is closed from an earlier emergency plane landing this afternoon around 2 o'clock. No injuries reported, but both streets are closed, Donovan and Racetrack, till further notice. We got some slow and go traffic on the 10 eastbound between Artcraft and Thorne. I-10 westbound, the slowing starts at Wrestler. I-10 eastbound at Hunter Drive. An accident reported there, police responding to that. Carrie Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
First, we decide where we want to go. Then we need to know the best way to get there. Hi, my name's Adam Barata. I'm the owner of Advantage Gold. We're the highest rated precious metals firm in the country. We teach people how to own physical gold and silver. Now, we've won the Best of TrustLink Award 4 years in a row because we educate our clients on how to buy gold and silver the right way. We don't pay celebrity spokespeople millions of dollars. We'd rather pass that value on to you. Call 800-900-8000 and speak with one of our experts. We'll send you a free gold kit along with my latest #1 national best-selling book, The Great Devaluation. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000. Get the best information, the best process, the best service, the best value. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Kids dream big. Protect your child's dreams by keeping them healthy. If your son or daughter is age 11 or 12, the American Cancer Society recommends giving them the HPV vaccine to help prevent HPV cancers later. Learn more at cancer.org/dreambig.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The family of Ahmaud Arbery is thankful after the 3 white men convicted of killing their son and brother in Georgia were sentenced. His mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, thanked the jury and judge and community.
I just want to say thank you all who supported me, who stood with me,
through this very long, very long, hard fight.
Greg McMichael and Travis McMichael, the man who pulled the trigger, got life without parole, and Roddy Bryan got life with the possibility of parole. They chased down and were later found guilty of killing Arbery, a 25-year-old black man, while he was jogging in Brunswick in February 2020. President Biden is now in Colorado to survey wildfire damage in Boulder County. The president and First Lady touched down at the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport this afternoon. They're touring a neighborhood in Louisville to see the destruction that took place with the Marshall Fire last week. The FDA is shortening the timeline for getting a coronavirus vaccine booster shot from Moderna. The agency now says individuals 18 and older can get their booster 5 months after they get their initial shots. Earlier this week, the CDC shortened its recommendation on when folks can get a coronavirus booster shot from Pfizer. That timeline is also now 5 months after somebody gets their second dose. Former President Obama will deliver the eulogy at the memorial service for the late Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid tomorrow. Lisa Taylor reports.
The service is being held in Las Vegas. President Biden and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will also deliver remarks along with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Singer-songwriter Carole King will perform at Reid's memorial. Reid will lie in state at the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday. The veteran Nevada lawmaker died recently after a long battle against cancer. Reid was 82.
A judge is denying a request from the Michigan school shooter's parents to lower their bond. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Former Tampa Bay Buccaneer Antonio Brown appears to be facing more troubles. Liz Warner reports.
British tabloid The Daily Mail has reported the night prior to his bizarre public departure from Sunday's Jets game, Brown also violated NFL COVID-19 protocols by sneaking a lingerie model into his New Jersey hotel room. 23-year-old Ava Louise claimed to have been smuggled in due to NFL COVID-19 rules prohibiting guests, at which point the pair are believed to have filmed a video of their tryst. Days later, sports outlets then suggested Louise confirmed her own positive COVID test, advising the Buccaneers via social media to get tested.
A swimsuit model possibly being stalked by someone using an Apple AirTag is increasing concerns about the device. Sports Illustrated swimsuit model Brooks Nader says one of the tiny gadgets was slipped into her coat pocket by a stranger who then tracked her for 5 hours. The $30 accessory has come under scrutiny as reports say it has been used by stalkers and thieves to track people without their knowledge. South Carolina's Department of Health wants to teach people about radon.
The department is offering free radon test kits for homes during the month of January, which is National Radon Action Month. The naturally occurring gas causes health issues when inside of a home. In fact, the gas is second only to smoking as the leading cause of lung cancer in the U.S. Because the gas cannot be seen, smelled, or tasted, the only way to know if it's in your home is to test for it. You can request a kit on DHEC's website. I'm Sarah Bartlett.
Movie theater attendance is dropping significantly below historical norms. According to a Gallup poll, Americans watched an average of just over 1.4 films in a movie theater over the last 12 months. A majority of those surveyed didn't visit a movie theater at all. 61% said they haven't been to a theater in over a year, while only 9% attended 5 or more films. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Need new hires in the new year? You need Indeed to help find your next hire. When you sponsor a post, you get a list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
I'm Steven Rennell, the host of the Meat Eater podcast and the Netflix original series Meat Eater. As a hunter and wildlife enthusiast, the question comes up, how can you justify killing and eating animals that you love and protect? Well, that's part of what we wrangle with on the Meat Eater podcast, along with broader and often funnier discussions about living an outdoor life in the modern world. We insist on sharing challenging opinions to inspire thought and action. Listen to the Meat Eater podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? When floodwaters reach your door? When wildfires are engulfing the edge of your neighborhood? Or an earthquake is destroying buildings? When a tornado is tearing through town? Or a hurricane strikes? Or is the best time perhaps today? During a disaster, you may not be able to stay in touch with your family or friends as easily as you think. And it's not always as simple as using your cell phone. That's why now is the time to take action. Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
You're locked into Hour 2 here of Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you very much for tuning in, however you may be doing so, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages we're on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Talk El Paso. On most of those, search up that name or Andrew J. Polk. You'll find us in one format or another. So, talking about a lot of, and I do mean a lot of stuff here today, because it is Free for All Friday with open lines throughout both hours. Going in strong already here. The line's full at the moment. But if you want to call in at any point, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I'll get to some of those pound 250 calls a little bit later. Comments usually out of control as they are, and I will do nothing to control it, to steal a phrase from one of my favorite YouTube personalities. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Joe Raul, as well as Calvin Williams, James Ratcliffe, John Brazelton, and more tuning in, chiming in over there. If you want to do so, more than welcome to. But let's also get to those calls here. Some of the general topics I'm looking at today is A, the continuous and incessant buildup to the next set of elections, which y'all better vote on, or I'm going to be like waiting for you in a closet as you go to sleep that night. That's my level of anger about it anyway, even if I can't actually do it. But it's just so much going on with it that I can't believe other people aren't excited, but that's what makes me weird. Anyway, getting to those calls, we do have Joe on the west side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're on the air with us. How are you doing today?
Okay, good. The reason I'm asking is I'm driving. Hey,
okay.
I just wanted to let you know that last time I called, I forgot to mention something about Biden. Biden is he's not only a bad person, he's also a pervert, and he is a terrible parent. You know, his kids are all druggies and all messed up. So what I wanted to talk about was a little bit of history. And I know this is the History Channel, may not be the right time, but I wanted to mention, people shouldn't forget this, that back in 1860, a man by the name of Abraham Lincoln was elected president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
When he came into office, when he was inaugurated in March of 1861, in April, the Democrats left the White House. I mean, they left the Union.
Mm-hmm.
They pulled out of the Union and started the war. And the war lasted, almost 4 or 5 years and killed close to 100,000, in my opinion, close to 100,000 people. Now, these were the Democrats that did this because they didn't want President Abraham Lincoln. Can you believe that? And then after that, they created the Ku Klux Klan and other groups that were their military enforcers. So, I mean, why are we doing this June? Why are we worried about this January 6th thing when the Democrats actually did the worst thing they could have done? And that was started a war and, in fact, left the Union because they didn't want President Abraham Lincoln in office.
I mean,
that's all I had to say.
No, that's thank you for the point in the call then. I mean, that is a relevant historical point of what level political disagreements can end up at. But you also, you're talking about the history, and of the history of these kind of disagreements brings up another point that's been kind of going for me. I know that we've had some people out there asking, okay, why should I even bother to vote if I'm worried about the integrity of it? that's a very modern perspective, and I don't fault you for it. But the point I want to make about that, kind of the historical perspective, is that literally at points during the existence of this country, there were arguments against having vote tabulation machines or things like that because of, well, the ability to no longer fudge elections. Edgar Allan Poe, to just have a complete non sequitur for you here, that's related to the main point overall. Edgar Allan Poe lived in Baltimore, of course, and right before he died, there was a strange incident involving him being found basically in the middle of like late winter, but with clothes that didn't fit him, half drunk, starved, frozen on a park bench in Baltimore. Now, it just happened to be election season by most reckonings there, and a common practice at that point in time, of course, was to do not exactly ballot box stuffing, but I mean, Baltimore may have happened as well, but more just take people constantly to the polls. So, because he was also found shaved. So the theory I subscribe most to is that he was basically swept up by one of these election press gangs, basically sent in to vote, brought back out, probably had a pint of whiskey poured down his throat, sent back in to vote again with a change of clothes, brought back out, shaved, sent back in to vote again, brought out, change of clothes, back in to shave, and just deathly amounts of alcohol because he died not too long after that due to all of these circumstances. So that's where we're coming from. So the reason I bring that up is that if the current difficulties discourage you, make you say, why should I even bother? We've been through worse, literally. So I frankly don't take any excuses for, I shouldn't go out and vote, I shouldn't be a part of it, what's the point? If that was the attitude taken at any previous point, we may not be in the country that we know today, may not even exist. So that is the point I want to make, that impress upon you all, that literally there have been worse circumstances for voting in an absolute matter, whatever you actually may believe about the current circumstances of voting. So I just roundly, fully, historically reject the idea of then why should I bother? All right, quick soapbox for the top of the hour here. Again, the call's on the line 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We do have Kareem on the east side here with us. Kareem, thanks for joining us.
Hi, yes, Andrew. First and foremost, Happy New Year to you and to all of the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we would be the 3.5 percenters.
I hope so. Absolutely.
And,
yeah.
Yeah. One of the previous callers, I think it was Tony, he had some very, very valid frustrations. However, I think there are several solutions, and a couple of them, and you touched on one of them. I was thinking about Article 5 of the Constitution and the whole Convention of States movement that's happening, specifically term limits for elected officials. But to me, the most important thing that needs to happen as an educator, because I teach in the public school system, is high school seniors or even juniors. I would be curious to know, maybe do some kind of a study, what percentage of those graduating students would be able to pass the citizenship exam that men and women who are going through the process of becoming citizens have to take. Very, very few students that I know of even know the different articles of the Constitution. Not saying that you have to know that to be a citizen, but with anything, like, for example, and I'm gonna use prayer as an example. You learn certain prayers as you're growing up because you say them over and over and over. What's your opinion as far as not necessarily mandating, because that's such a big word right now, graduating students to know the Constitution, to know the Bill of Rights, to know the rest of the amendments. In classrooms is where change can happen, and if we want a more informed citizenry, I think that these students have to be, I hate to say, have to be forced to know what the founders did and why they did it.
I mean, you're touching on a very important point there, that them knowing this stuff, because if you don't know the mechanisms of the government and culture and society that you inhabit, you are inherently going to be disconnected from the movement of power in it. That's just a matter of fact. The perspective I have on that is that I actually used to be a part of running a youth leadership conference done through the Military Order of the World Wars out in Arizona. Was a part of the leadership there for a few years and went through it myself. And I studied that kind of stuff. I guess I was a weird kid because I found that interesting and important to do, but that was not something shared by my peers necessarily. I'm going to put you on hold there a little bit with the noise there, but the point is that going to that conference and then running it for years afterwards, I found a lot of kids being like, yeah, I never learned this stuff in school, or there wasn't enough of a focus on it for them to learn it. What we focused on was the form of government that we inhabit, the free enterprise system and representative government, all of those purposes here. So we went into all of that, and the amount of, I didn't realize, and stuff like that came up was, it hardened me that they were learning about this, but at the same point, it makes me concerned about our general public education system because, yeah, there's just not enough of it. There may be some vague idea of, we have these rights. How? I don't know. So I would absolutely, if I could just, snap my fingers, make something happen, not necessarily high on the list of priorities, but on this subject, yeah, I'd say that, yes, to graduate, you must prove a competent education within these things because this stuff's important. So you're absolutely right there, and I'll absolutely agree with you on that point. That and I hope in your work as an educator, if you have the opportunity, you can help inculcate that a little bit.
Absolutely. I'm of the opinion that the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, that's the DNA of our country. And whether you want to use it to, do things on the left or do things on the right, that document, those articles, those amendments, they show you how to do it peacefully.
It's very, very true. And to quote Thomas Jefferson here, that democracy cannot long exist without enlightenment, that it cannot function without wise and honest officials, that talent and virtue needed in a free society should be educated regardless of wealth, birth, or other accidental condition, that other children of the poor must be educated at common expense. Going a little bit more into his purposes of education, but the idea that education is a cornerstone of the functioning of our government into perpetuity was literally baked in at the very beginning. So I applaud you for the work that you're doing then, and hope you can do what you can, and hopefully more of our system will change around to respect that.
Absolutely. And hopefully, God willing, we can raise that number from 3.5 to at least 10% during this midterm.
I would love double digits, but I'm not going to hold my breath because I don't want to die. But thank you very much for the point and the call. I do appreciate it.
All right. God bless you.
You too. All right. You have a great evening there. All right. We're overdue for that next break here right now. Coming out of the break, we're doing that free for all thing. So we will take more calls in the line, more comments. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Warms my heart thinking about the focus on there sometimes. But we'll get to more of that here after the break. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
The intersection of Donovan and Racetrack is closed from an earlier emergency plane landing this afternoon around 2 o'clock. No injuries reported, but both streets are closed, Donovan and Racetrack, till further notice. We got some slow and go traffic on the 10 eastbound between Artcraft and Thorne. I-10 westbound, the slowing starts at Wrestler. I-10 eastbound at Hunter Drive. An accident reported there. Police responding to that. Carrie Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Looking to save money this year? Look at Allstate. You can get the protection you need at the low rate you want. With Allstate, you can lower your rates, not your expectations. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. It sure feels good to step into a warm car after letting it heat up for a few minutes. However, this practice wastes gas, increases emissions, and pollutes the air. Limit idling your car to no more than 3 minutes to save money at the gas station and improve air quality. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
When El Paso Children's Hospital first opened its doors in 2012, they forever changed pediatric healthcare in the region. More families stay in El Paso for specialty treatment instead of leaving town. More children have access to pediatric specialists. 7 pediatric specialty clinics help achieve the best possible outcomes. And there's so much more to come. El Paso Children's Hospital, celebrating 10 years of pediatric specialty care in the region. 10 years of wonder.
If you're tired of big cable bills and want to cut the cord, you can still get Newsmax TV for free. Millions of Americans like you are watching Newsmax. It's available on all major cable systems, or get it free on major streaming platforms. Watch Newsmax on smart TVs like Samsung, LG, Vizio, and more. Find Newsmax on your hub guide or use the TV app. Newsmax also streams free on Roku, Zumo, Pluto, Amazon Fire, TiVo, Apple TV, Chromecast, and more. More than 7 million people have downloaded the free Newsmax app on their smartphones. There's no paywall or subscription, so watch Newsmax anytime, anywhere. Forbes calls Newsmax a news powerhouse. And watch great shows with Mike Huckabee, Greg Kelly, Rob Schmidt, Diamond and Silk, Stinchfield, and a lot more. Find out why America is tuning in to Newsmax TV, the fastest growing cable news channel. It's a source you can trust. Newsmax is real news for real people.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of two people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Whole lot of ways you can participate in the show, as we are doing that whole free-for-all Friday thing with open lines throughout the hour. So you can call in 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Got comments going on here. Leroy Chuck kind of commenting, I guess, on our last caller there in the discussion that hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times, as a cycle continues there. So I don't know if I 100% agree with it, but fluxes of history. History never repeats itself, but it does rhyme, is the way I find it in my study of it. So call in comments. Pound 250 calls coming up a little bit later as well. That's one of the ways you can leave us a comment, day or night, whether we're on the air or not, because I know you all, particularly over the weekend, have some burning thoughts and questions and things developing at the very least. So the way you do that, pound 250, dial that on your cell phone. Then when prompted, you'll say the keyword Talk El Paso. You can leave us your own message here. But we got more calls in the line. Again, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Right now we do have Ben on the east side here with us. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. I'm okay. First of all, no, I'm not a doctor, but I am talking about doctors that I have been listening to and who actually treat COVID, not the ones that have never seen a COVID patient. There's three over-the-counter products that you can get that could save your life. Okay, and I would like to talk about those. One is Scope. Okay, Scope and Listerine both have virucidal ingredients in them, and if you gargle with Scope, you lower the amount of virus in your upper respiratory system, therefore limiting the amount of virus that gets into your system. It's very well known. Second thing is a nose spray. Nose spray, it's you can make it up yourself. They recommend a 1% iodine, povidone iodine thing that you make up, and you spray it into your nose. It goes down your throat, spit it out when it goes into your throat, and then gargle, and that kills virus also. Now, there is another product that has been shown to have efficacy, and that is a product called Xlear. Xlear that's Xlear, and it has xylitol and grapefruit extract, which is and both have shown to be virucidal. So, yeah, it's another nose spray. You can do the same thing you do with the other nose spray, and it will lower your virucidal level. And then third, if not, and this is my favorite subject, is vitamin D. Vitamin D3 will save your life if you have a level of 50 or above. The chances of you getting COVID or getting a bad case of COVID goes way down. And if you go and talk to your doctor, vitamin D, it's, what it does, it's sort of like an orchestra leader. It's in front of the orchestra. It tells your immune system how to work and how to work efficiently. And so if you have a real high level vitamin D level, the chances of you having a problem, it goes way down. And that's very well known. So, but if you talk with your doctor, a lot of doctors will say that, oh, your vitamin D is fine. If you ask them what their level is, it's 20, 25. That's not good enough. 50 or above is what you're aiming for. Fauci himself was taking 6,000 international units per day, never told anybody about it. And the one other thing is that vitamin D, well, that's about what I'm talking about then.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I'll be perfectly honest. I've been taking a vitamin D supplement ever since it was given me to a particular bit of advice. And when I got the vaccination, was that to reduce symptoms, start dosing with vitamin D before you are planning on going to get it. And I've just kind of kept up on it ever since. Also, vitamin B is something I focus on, and vitamin C is always kind of a good one, particularly this time of year, but I've been doing kind of year round ever since. So that's part of the regimen I'm on that I've found useful for myself. But I mean, when it comes to those other basic kind of health items, it makes a lot of sense. And it kind of goes into a larger topic that we've discussed a little bit about the kind of general lack of a focus on general health. When it comes to all of this, we've had much top line talk about what's going on with, treatments, vaccinations, pills being developed. And that's not unimportant by any means or shape or form, but also the lack of focus on then reducing the comorbidities, the contributing factors, all of that. I mean, sure, it's not simple, it's not fast, it's not easy, but the fact that there hasn't been any focus on that at all is a little bit, you're missing half the picture when we're not talking about that.
Andrew, one thing for sure, the other thing I did want to mention is that you can find this information all out. Just Google FLCCC. That's FLCCC, and that is where you'll find the information from doctors that have actually treated COVID and their findings and their protocols for taking care of things before you get really sick and have to go to the hospital.
Interesting point there. Well, thank you for the points on the call there, Ben. Do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great evening there. I mean, this is why I say, and it may sound like some people accuse me of it being a couch outline, but seriously, this is why I talk about it, that do what's right for you and your family, because no one else is going to take care of you the way you take care of you. I'm not going to come do it. I have my own family to take care of. No other talking head on any outlets that you agree or disagree with is going to come do it for you. You have to take care of you. And so do what makes the most sense for you. And everyone's situation is different, is what it comes down to. So, yeah, I mean, there's tips out there. What Ben was just referring to there, the website, or the look up the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance for the FLCCC. I'll have to look more into that myself here. But there's a lot of other things they can do besides what is the major focus is on all of these platforms here. Kelvin Williams saying that he uses Navage. James Ratcliffe saying that he uses D3 and colloidal silver. Just don't turn yourself blue, because I've heard of that case that comes to mind when talking about colloidal silver. But hey, if it works for you, and I'm not saying go and start making experimental cocktails in your own garage here. That's why I say consult your doctor before making any major choices. But there's a lot of possibilities out there. And something else I've been working on is trying to drop a few pounds, because that's a contributing factor I'm exhibiting. So there's a lot more to focus on here than just what goes out in the major aspects of it. So this is when I say do what's right for you and your family. This is all what's wrapped up in my mind, and I hope comes across here. All right, due for that next break right now for the bottom of the hour, rounding the bend here on the second hour of Talk El Paso, 4 to 6 p.m. Coming back to the break, we'll talk more about the issues affecting us here in the borderland. Elections just a little bit top of mind for me, but there's a whole lot more going on, which is why we're taking those calls and those comments throughout the hour. 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
I'm Jessica Gonzalez with your CBS 4 News Update. The health department in El Paso is now adopting the CDC's latest guidance when it comes to quarantine. Anyone who tests positive for COVID-19 will have to isolate for at least 5 full days instead of the full 10 days. Then the department says people need to wear masks and practice social distancing. The updated guidance comes as El Paso County reports 1,000 new infections. The last time we saw this high of a daily increase was more than a year ago. The positivity rate is now at 12%. The city of El Paso says its mega testing sites are facing a major delay in getting COVID results back to people. They say the recent spike in families getting tested and staffing issues is to blame for the delay. Officials with the lab processing results reports it will be bringing in more people to meet the demand. UTEP is allowing departments to make their own decisions on whether to send employees back to remote work. The university is still planning to start the spring semester on time and in person. Students and staff are encouraged to get tested before returning to campus from winter break. I'm Jessica Gonzalez with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Checking your El Paso traffic, a portion of Donovan Drive still closed due to that small emergency plane landing earlier this afternoon. I-10 westbound is slow and go from Wrestler to Thorne. I-10 eastbound at Loop 375, America Avenue. An accident is blocking the right shoulder there. Loop 375 at Zaragoza. A lot of congestion there. It's got the Zaragoza exit ramp blocked. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. So we've got some pretty warm temperatures, at least again for your weekend, with temperatures hovering near 70 degrees on Saturday in some areas around the borderland. But a cool down will take place as we get into Sunday with a cold front coming in. Look for some winds this weekend as well. Nothing very strong, but they'll be noticeable. Kicking into next week, though, we've got our next weather maker bringing back colder air and rain chances.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Mass Mutual knows that your finances can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Mark, we should really talk about our money.
Yep, we really should.
Like, we never talk about our savings.
No, we never talk about that. Or our assets.
Or our debt.
Yeah, we really should talk about our debt.
We need one of those financial plans.
One of those will make a difference.
We should talk about it.
We really should.
Talk to us about financial wellness today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live Mutual.
Attend the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, January 8th and 9th at the Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Ave in Las Cruces. See dealers selling the finest in modern guns, antique guns, custom knives, ammo, Old West collectibles, reloading supplies, and much more. Buy, sell, and trade at the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, January 8th and 9th, Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University in Las Cruces. Get $2 off. Go to azgunradio.com. Parking is free.
Get your biggest refund guaranteed. Jackson Hewitt Tax Pros will help find thousands worth of new tax credits so you get every dollar you deserve. So why wait? Schedule an appointment with one of their tax pros and learn more at jacksonhewitt.com. This report is sponsored by Jackson Hewitt.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. We are doing that Friday thing where we are taking those comments and calls throughout the hour. So if you want to chime in, and if you're already tuned in, thank you for doing so. But it's your open invitation, particularly if you're one of our newer listeners or haven't called in before. The number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. As we have a James Radcliffe, Calvin Williams, Leroy Chuck, Raul, and a whole lot more tuned in, chiming in over on the social pages. John Brazelton a little bit earlier, and more throughout the hour. Matt Olson before that. Oh, a whole lot going on, a whole lot to talk about. So if you want to add your 2 cents, you are more than welcome to. one of the topics, again, just occupying not even just so much rent-free real estate, but a whole city block in my mind, is absolutely the upcoming elections. The fact that Texas Governor Greg Abbott hasn't technically announced his re-election yet just kind of baffles me, because it's like, I mean, I've given the O'Rourke campaign a fair amount of ribbing on the fact that they weren't even able to announce before the anti-ads that then came out. But the fact that he even really has to say it is one thing that I'm running again, because it's all been pretty clear. But he's also given a little bit of room then for some of his opponents to focus in on it. You may be aware, as we've talked about previously, some of the opponents in the primary election coming up in pretty dang quick, just under 3 months, 2 months and change, really. And there was a ad during the last Dallas Cowboys game that I had missed seeing live. I must not have been tuned in at the right time, but we've talked about Alan West and what he brought up this past week. The former Republican Party chairman for the state of Texas, Alan West, came here to hold that seat, but then ended up stepping down from it in order to pursue this run for governor in the primary, to open a primary, Greg Abbott. But Don Huffines was one of the original guys that we talked with on our air. And, well, you can find the 30-second ad for yourself, the one that he ran during the Cowboys game, if you search it up. I'm just going to read to you the little bottom line, the required disclaimer, political ad paid for by Don Huffines' campaign. And they took a little bit of a creative license with it, with saying all of that, then comma, an actual Republican. And that is the point that is still being hammered on by his opponents, hoping to actually primary Abbott from the right. Just a thing that I would not necessarily have thought was possible, but a couple of things demonstrated in that ad were the Haitian crisis there. Prayer in school is also something else he's focused on as well, but just the general issues, and a little bit of that line that I think someone else said when calling in here, mentioning a little bit of follow the leader of DeSantis. Those as emerging campaign talking points. Oh, this is the stuff that I'm all in for as well here. Good time. So that's one aspect of it that I'm paying a lot of attention to, and I will just enjoy the heck out of following as we get closer and closer to the election. The odds, the handicapping, the political way that it happens seems to be focused primarily on the challenges to Greg Abbott being that of Huffines and West, but all of this ends up coming down to the idea of then a campaign against O'Rourke. Is, again, what's expected at this point. I would be mildly surprised if he doesn't end up securing the Democrat nomination, since he's the best-known Democrat politician in the state. If I'm wrong, let me know what you think. But Abbott, for his own part, even though he's seemingly getting late to the game, I mean, he still has those attack ads out, which makes me wonder, how does that work if you weren't announced? Anyway, he is part of that announcement of his campaign and the actual kickoff of it, going to plan apparently a pretty aggressive meet and greet schedule of starting in South Texas. He's going to be in the Rio Grande Valley to announce the actual launch of his campaign, but then he's going to hit 60 campaign stops in under 2 months, according to the Texas Tribune, getting more into what they're actually going to be planning for this campaign. So yeah, he's got less than 2 months here to deal with all of this, and so that's going to be almost more than two stops a day, and he's really going to be hammering on South Texas, it looks like, and not to neglect any of the strongholds that he's going to be hoping to pull from. But this just whole election buildup is fascinating, because I can't really remember, maybe I wasn't paying enough political attention at the time, I will be freely accepting of that burden on myself if I wasn't aware enough, but someone primarying Abbott from the right. If you had told me 2 years ago that that's what would be happening, I would have laughed at you and saying, so what is the issue they're on? And, well, here we are doing that free-for-all thing this hour throughout the rest of it. So, again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. This is not to say that I underestimate Abbott, and I think anyone who does would be a very, very poor decision maker. It would make me question about their viability if they're saying, no, Abbott's a trifling. But the tactics and strategery of this, fascinating to me. All right, we do have a caller on the line here. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Good morning, sir. This is Paul, and I'm on the east side, the best side of town. Anyway, listen, all right, I'm going to open a can of worms, whatever you may say. You said it's Friday. We can talk about what we All right, here's the can of worms.
Sure.
When you belong to a certain organization or religion like El Paso, all right, and you are somebody that believes in abortion, and yet again you believe in a certain religion, and you go out and people vote for you because they believe in the religion, but they let abortion go back. So otherwise, they don't care about abortion as long as their particular candidate gets elected. So you see what I'm saying? It's okay to go out and say, okay, I believe I'm against abortion, but I'm a certain party, and I've got to vote for that party before abortion. So try to explain that to me.
I think you're kind of getting around to the idea of what most commonly gets called shopping cart Catholics, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to sleep better for the rest of my life when I thank you.
Sure thing. I mean, that's kind of an issue that's been going on this whole time. I mean, I keep referring to CPAC because that was just an incredible experience going out there and be able to have access and talk directly with a bunch of the people involved in these issues, but just on a strict, again, religious basis, sure, but cultural basis as well, it would almost make more sense that there are certain values that are held being going more of a conservative way. I mean, I think a lot of people end up being more that way than in general than they will admit freely in a lot of public arenas, but particularly when it comes to the Roman Catholic faith, it would almost seem that it would integrate better with conservative ideology, but it doesn't exactly work out that way a lot, and that's, I think, part of the political disconnect that we have in our area, not gonna lie. But to a further extent, I do think that it's just people not being engaged, not engaging with their beliefs, what their core values are in a kind of, real introspective way, really looking into, okay, what is important to me, and is the things I'm doing in all aspects of life actually helping achieve that, much less in the ballot box? Because, yeah, we got a whole lot of people that just don't end up doing it. I'm sure there's plenty out there that are saying, okay, these are my values and I will go out and vote those, or, well, these are what I think, but this is the guy I like best. So the whole shopping cart Catholic thing, I don't know. I don't know if I feel like it's that prevalent in our area because, again, sure, we have the whole anecdotal evidence about this being a Democrat stronghold, but I have long had the contention and will continue to do so until proven otherwise, that we are not a Democrat city. We're not even a Republican city. We're not an anything city. We are a non-voting city and county and region. Because if no vote, as in the people that were registered to vote did not even vote for this position, was a choice on the ballot, it would win almost every single position in this area, almost in perpetuity. Again, with the slight exception, heck, not even the exception of the presidential race, because sure, we have 50% voter turnout. That means that, sure, there was the breakdown between the candidates, but that means that there was still a strong 40% turnout that said no to either, essentially. So yes, almost every single, there might be an outlier out there that I'm not aware of, but yeah, every election here would be won by the didn't vote candidate. Ugh. There's so much disconnect here, and that's why we will be focusing on this here coming up a little bit later this month, as well as other local issues. So thank you for the point in that call. It's important to discuss these things. The whole don't talk about religion, politics, finances, and polite company, that never made sense to me, just flat out. Because if you're not talking about the things that are important to you, now there's ways to talk about it, because let's just say, having been on the California boardwalk, if someone was doing that same kind of proselytizing to me in a standard conversation, I probably wouldn't associate with that person. But we've lost the art of being able to just have the conversation, have the discussion, say what is important to us to each other with respect to the other person as well. Because it's not about just slamming it home, owning whoever, really discussing what's important to you and finding, frankly, the common ground. That is a skill that has been in very short supply in almost any aspect of life I can think of or I have visited in for a good chunk of my lifetime anyway. Consensus building, finding common ground, dealing with it, these should not be hard things, and yet they're almost dirty words these days. So that's why I like having this conversation, focusing on these issues. So again, thank you for the point and that call. Coming up on the need for that last break of the hour right now. Again, if you want to call in and add your last 2 cents before we end the week, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. let me just lay the table here of some of the important issues we got coming up. We have our own economic recovery to be looking at. We've got the border trades infrastructure. And by the way, as a point made about that I think Tony brought up about having your house split in half, all of the construction work, and I do mean almost all of it, happening on major roadways, Mesa right outside our studios here, the Border Highway, Patriot Freeway, 375 in general, even Trans Mountain, all of it is gearing up to the reconstruction, basically, of I-10 itself, because there has not been roadbed maintenance on that highway since it was constructed, coming up on 70 years ago. So, what do you think that's going to mean for the traffic out there? Oh, there's so much more to talk about. We'll have to do it after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. We'll close out this hour with whoever calls else want to comes in on to those pound 250 calls as well. And just setting it up for next week. We got more in store for you, so stay tuned. Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking your El Paso traffic, a portion of Donovan Drive still closed due to that small emergency plane landing earlier this afternoon. I-10 westbound is slow and go from Wrestler to Thorne. I-10 eastbound at Loop 375, America Avenue. An accident is blocking the right shoulder there. Loop 375 at Zaragoza. A lot of congestion there. It's got the Zaragoza exit ramp blocked. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I bought football tickets for my husband's birthday, and now I'm in a football bubble. All I see online are articles and ads about football. I hate feeling manipulated. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Let's face it, credit cards are pretty much a necessity.
New tires for the car? Here's my card.
I order takeout, use my card.
And most of us just accept the high interest rates credit cards charge as a necessary evil.
What are you going to do?
Get a low fixed-rate credit card consolidation loan from Lightstream from $5,000 to $100,000 and pay off those credit card balances. Apply online, and you could get your money as soon as the day you apply. The average credit card company charges over 19% APR, but with Lightstream, you can get a fixed rate as low as 4.98% APR with auto pay and excellent credit.
Now I can pay off my high-interest credit cards and save money with a much lower rate.
Apply today at lightstream.com/radio and get an additional interest rate discount. That's lightstream.com/radio. Lightstream.com/radio.
Subject to credit approval. Rates range from 4.98% APR to 19.99% APR and include a 0.5% auto pay discount. Lowest rate requires excellent credit. Terms and conditions apply and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/radio for more information.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes can make a big difference. Want to reduce your food waste? Embrace your freezer. From bread to meat and even cheese, most foods can be frozen and cooked later. Plus, a full freezer uses less electricity. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/earth.
Donate blood, save a life, and maybe win a Barnett Harley-Davidson motorcycle. The all-radio blood drive from Vital. Martin Luther King weekend at Barnett Harley-Davidson, El Paso, and Las Cruces. Free t-shirts and gift-filled goodie bags to all donors. Plus a chance to win a Barnett Harley-Davidson motorcycle. Give blood. Friday, January 14th to Monday, January 17th. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. Learn more at BarnettHarley.com or call 915-592-5804. Sponsored in part by Ears, the El Paso Association of Radio Stations, and Vitalent.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. It has been a heck of a week. The first week of us doing this whole 2-hour thing, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., Still getting used to saying it myself, but feels good to be out here talking about the issues that affect us here in the borderland and that are important to the people who live here. That's the other part of it that gets more than a little bit overlooked, I do believe. So happy to have you along with us, joining in however you may be doing so, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, Twitter @Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, and Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. All those ways to find us, tune in, chime in. You are more than welcome to do so as we're coming up on the end of this show and this first week of the new year. Point that's been living in the back of my head ever since it was said yesterday, actually, about, and was brought up today, about El Paso and what it is or isn't in its culture or lack thereof. I very much grew up in the time when there's nothing to do and Hell Paso, where various monikers used to describe our situation here. And I mean, at a certain point, I may have agreed with it as a very young man, not understanding what the possibilities are and what's really out there. Anyone who's still bored in El Paso, I gotta say, you need to get out more. You need to find something, because there's plenty to be having going on out there. So we also have a Juan chiming in on over on the social pages. Thank you for doing so. Because there is more. I mean, El Paso continues to grow. I've been incredibly impressed with how it has changed, but El Paso is not Houston. El Paso is not Dallas. El Paso is not San Antonio. El Paso is not any of the other cities in Texas or anywhere else. El Paso is El Paso. We have plenty of issues to deal with here, but I am still damn proud and happy to be from here and talking about the issues that affect us here. No one told me to do this show. No one said, hey, you know, we need to have just a local talk show focused on the El Paso issues. Can you put that together? No, I wanted to do this. I wanted to come here, put this together, and come here to this radio station. Was already in town, of course, but make this a reality, because the fact that we are top 20 biggest cities in the country, even if we're having some possible stagnation issues, and we don't have this kind of outlet, we didn't have this kind of ability to sit down and really hash it out, that we get the opportunity to on this show, just baffled me for years. It really came down to, back when I was doing TV news, driving around, and on one of the elections, I think it was the one where Limon actually first got elected, to date that specifically, and was looking like, okay, cell signal is crappy here. I guess I'll look for, see if there are updates on what the election results are, you know, on radio, because I was driving around at that point, and tuned in and just saw nothing. Just, there was nothing. There was no response. There was nothing on air. Wasn't even like small updates, and I was just baffled that, wait, in this kind of a community that still has some connectivity issues and things like that, not everyone has broadband, etc., particularly at that point, we don't have that on air. And that just stuck with me for literal years, until finally got the opportunity to be here and deal with this. Leroy Chuck pointing out, absolutely one of our biggest issues in El Paso is that it needs more murals. I did not mean to get you stuck on that, but I mean, I just go, you don't even have to go under the freeway, just drive by it and look, they're around. So I guess that's one of those observation issues I'm getting into here. The long way I'm going about this saying is that I do appreciate it that you all are a part of this and are being a part of this, and we will continue talking about what's going on here. One of the ones I just want to mention briefly, that is absolutely a topic we are focused on, but it's going to be coming up more and more as we get through the first quarter of this year. Elections is a huge one, but April 1st, what New Mexico is doing when it comes to recreational marijuana and the impact it's likely to have on our area has been a subject we touched a bit more on. Our news partners over at KFox talking about this week, that there's a huge new Las Cruces grow operation possible coming out here. Preparation and planning dates already going on, as well as more possible people buying facilities in the area. These are just some of the major issues going on in and around our area. Leroy Chuck, I don't mean to pick on you. It's just you make it too easy with the focus on the murals. I mean, I like murals. I don't think they are an important urban development issue to the exclusion of others, but just, I mean, it's you keep bringing it up and it's hilarious to me. Anyway, this is a long way to say that we have a lot to talk about here. I mean, border security issues that we've talked about this week, immigration, the impact on the politics of it, how our legislature and beyond is going to respond to that. All of it says that we need to be paying more attention to these issues and well beyond. And these 3.5-4% voter turnouts just aren't going to cut it, particularly when it comes to our local elections. Outside of the primaries, here's what we're gearing up for when it comes to the general election, November of next year. We have midterms, the national midterms. Of course, we're going to see a whole lot more representatives up for election, all of the representatives and a good bit of the senators as well. But then also, we're going to be having our local city council and other elected officials, about half or so of commissioners court, all of the state reps. So all levels of government that we talk about and deal with here are going to be up and ready for you to comment on them. And I just want to prove in some way, shape, or form that we're paying attention, that the El Paso populace is not just going to sit there and say, yeah, whatever, I don't care. Because that is a hefty bit of our politics that's been going on for the last ever. So if there's anything that it comes out of this, if we could get a double-digit % turnout, I will be ecstatic, and we will figure out how to hold a party or something here. I guess we have one last-minute call coming in here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Rose.
Hi there, Rose. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment to Raul when he called yesterday and he was all wounded because you don't let people, the callers, that you are.
Rose, you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to express some feelings that I have towards what Raul was talking about yesterday. He sounded wounded because supposedly you let too many people talk bad about Joe Biden. But the thing is, he wants us to be proud of a man that his first duty is to protect the people of the United States, and he puts us in danger with the Antifa being the right arm of the left of the Democrats. He has open borders, and the drugs are just pouring in here. So that's not good for our country. So I don't see how he expects us to be respectful to this man that we have in the White House right now. I call it the corrupt house right now.
I mean, I think you're bringing up a valid point there. Let me just say this when it comes to that whole issue and the phrase he used about it. People in public life, people, elected officials, have signed up for our ability to criticize, discuss their policies, and disagree with them. So find whoever you want to support there, but I don't drink anyone's Kool-Aid. Everyone is up for discussion and debate and the issues and what they are dealing with and the contributing factors that they bring themselves in their own personage. All of that is up for debate, and we will do that every Monday through Friday, 4 to 5 p.m. here on News Radio 690 KTSM. So, Rose, thank you very much there for the comment and the call. Do appreciate that. Hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You have a safe one.
You too. We'll have to leave it there for today. We are out of time for this show. So I want to thank you sincerely, everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in this show. You all are help what makes this the reality that it is. And interesting stat I heard the other day that podcasts may be very popular. We should probably be doing more of a podcast thing, but that for every hour of podcast that are listened to, there are still 6 hours of broadcast radio listened to. So this is more of a thing than I think people give it credit for. We'll leave it there for today. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Do it again Monday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when not on the road and maybe planes in the sky. And have a great weekend, y'all. Back more with new shows on Monday. We will see you then.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking your El Paso traffic. Small plane made that emergency landing earlier this afternoon. That's still closed Donovan Drive at Racetrack. No injuries. Loop 375 eastbound at Zaragoza, the exit 48, and that exit ramp is partially blocked. And it's stop and go on the westbound side of I-10, Wrestler to Thorne. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
The El Paso History Show with Jackson Polk and Melissa Sargent is 10 a.m. this Saturday, with another show about the culture and heritage of the El Paso area. The El Paso History Show is sponsored by Patrick Tuttle Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant in Cañutillo, Mission Del Rey Southwest, Keystone Heritage Park, and Monterey Asset Management. It's the El Paso History Show, Saturday morning at 10 a.m., now streaming on Facebook and YouTube, and on News Radio 690.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see